You said that black people enjoyed being slaves.
I think there were probably a good majority of black people who back then were born and raised as slaves, probably because that's the only thing they knew. It was the environment they grew up in. If they had a slave owner who treated them well, they probably enjoyed their lives.
I'm glad you're watching. Linking this video to what you've just heard previously, black people, black American having been the only people in the world history to fight for the right to exist. So it's very important that to also look at history and the misconceptions that people have concerning the black history. Black people enjoyed being slaves. This is what this lady has just said right here. And we'll try to relate that statement to history. What was it to enjoy about being a slave? Was it an enjoyable moment? What was it about, you know? How could somebody enjoy being treated as a property as opposed to a human being? This is the only type of life they knew, as she's just said, trying to defend, you know. But could it be that they were not seeing white people living the life that they were denied of? So how would you say that the only life?
To reject the idea that our children will be so traumatized by the truth of our complicated American story.
Black people enjoyed being slaves. Let's unpack that statement. Contrary to what it claims, enslaved people weren't walking around plantations with big smiles on their faces singing Kumbaya with their paternalistic masters. Slavery, by definition, is the ownership of a person as property, and the act of enslaving someone is to force them to remain in a bad situation and or completely control their life. So it's not hard to see how black people, who are in fact human beings, generally didn't like being enslaved. Being enslaved meant being considered as property, like furniture or farm animals. Being enslaved meant watching your family get torn apart and separately sold, not knowing if you'd ever see them again. Being enslaved meant being beaten, sexually assaulted, or killed without repercussions because, as I just mentioned, they were property.
Whale Slave Dungeon, Cape Coast, Ghana.
In fact, some enslaved people were beaten so badly that they had to repair the holes in their backs with grease, and that's coming from Harriet Smith, a formerly enslaved woman. As for the good old slave owners, well, that's just an oxymoron, isn't it? Because the fact remains that they were still slave owners. They still owned people. They still did not accept black people, as their equals. Black people enjoyed being slaves. What's enjoyable about being in your village when one day someone with a skin tone you've never seen before, talking a language you don't understand, bursts through, kidnaps you and your family did in their own ways, for example by breaking or hiding tools, working slowly, hiding escape maps in their hair, which is how we got cornrows, or concealing fight moves through dance, which is how we got capoeira. If they were so happy with their treatment, wouldn't they just lay back and let it happen? No, because the majority of black people didn't enjoy being slaves, and white people knew this. That's why after Nat Turner's rebellion, frightened white mobs killed another 200 black people in retaliation. That's why the state of Virginia passed stronger laws to control slaves. That's why the Underground Railroad, a group of both black and white folks who secretly helped slaves escape to the North, began. Black people enjoyed being slaves. That statement hinges on the myths of the Uncle Tom and Mammy trope, something I've literally talked about before, to justify the supposed humanity of the institution of slavery. Essentially, enslavers made up that myth because they depended on the institution of slavery and needed it to supply future slaves. And sadly, because slavery has been so frequently misrepresented and whitewashed, we get instances like these.
In fact, it seems rather clear that black Americans are doing better here today than they would be had their ancestors generations ago never been brought to these shores.
The history books that we were taught in school, especially on the collegiate level, with the study of African American history being mandated at all HBCUs, it's been brought to my attention that those documents were falsified. Lots of researchers have been trying to find the slave ships for years and no one has found them. Not because they're lost at sea, but because they never existed. Now,
at Naples, to free Rome, to free Paris, to free Europe.
For a span of 400
Damn it!
years.
We died to build America. And America.
boats that did exist were the boats that were bringing indentured servants over, and we all have records for those. Now, the records that we have for those boats, people names were changed from the names that they had when they came here, like Goldsberg and Wanatsky and Slavarsky, and they were all changed to names like Johnson, Jackson, and so forth and so on. So we've come to a few conclusions after more research was conducted. We started going through deed books to see who was here and who was not here. Deed books that predates the indentured servant boats, and we found in the record books, tucked in courthouses, under the goddamn desk, covered in dust, we found records of Negroes, Nagas, the ones you call nigger. And we discovered that our ancestors not only did they own land, but during the Continental Congress, the Iroquois Confederacy actually started patenting land. So our ancestors, those of you who have been called descendants of slaves, those of you who have been called nigger, your ancestors actually patented what's now called America, the United States of America. And you, till this day, are the heirs. Let me repeat that. Your ancestors, who were depicted to be slaves, patented land in America. The land with all of the gold, all of the mineral, all of the titanium, all of the copper, all of the silver, all of the coca, all of the pineapple, all of the apple, all of the tobacco, all of the turpentine, all of the cypress. They patented it to protect it so that you would forever be wealthy. So
the Black people enjoyed being slaves back when slavery was a thing.
This is why they don't want to teach critical race theory, and this is why they're politicizing it and bringing it to extremisms, to make sure that we don't have a narrative on our truth, right? Your people dug up mummies and ate them for a beauty standard. Your people captured us, cut off our genitalia, and put them in museums. There are vintage furniture, that is filled with our hair because your people cut our hair off and use it as plush. You used our skin as leather for book casings. You built zoos and put us next to animals in cages on display. Right? The first pornographic entertainment, earliest, with Sarah Bartman, who y'all cut her genitalia off and used her organs and experimented and put them up in a museum. You used our babies as alligator bait and then proceeded to put them on stamps and use it as a mailing across the world. What is wrong with you? You had picnics under burning bodies. Picnics. Then took pictures of those picnics. Then made postage stamps. Postage stamps. I need you to get into what your grandparents were into. We talk about pathology and we talk about how memories are passed down and fears and stuff. And you wonder why we have animosity towards you today, because the violence is so ancestral that it is in our veins to not like you. It is literally inbred in us. It is survival. Our hair stands up when we're around you. That's ancestral. I need you to get into what kind of witchcraft your people are into till this day, because sex trafficking and collecting embryos and collecting children and women and men and energy. I need you to get into what your people are into. Wake up, wake up, wake up, wake up. We will never forget. We will never be silent. We will always make sure you know. Never.
I will say it about this video. Thank you so much for stopping by. Thank you for watching. Thank you for coming back. Thank you for commenting. Thank you for liking. Thank you for subscribing. Thank you for being part of Comfort for Life Network. I appreciate that you're part of the change that we are making. Thank you so much. I was so happy to read your comments. You know, there's a lot of comments I've received so far, and keep doing it kindly. I appreciate. I read each one of them, and I've not missed even one, you know. Yeah, I appreciate it. I love interacting. This is our history. That's who we are as human beings, as Africans, as Black Americans. Should not feel ashamed of who you are. You know, that's the history, and there's need for us to learn, and not just you know, this is American history. I don't know why it should be twisted. You know, it should be taught in all its entirety. There's also something called white guilt. That, yeah, some histories, yeah, people are teaching white American to feel guilty about the history of America, about slavery. But is that right? We'll also be looking at that in our next video. Don't forget to give me a